Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. Before we dive into this powerful episode, please remember to subscribe to our channels and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes to continue hustling. This episode is brought to you by Excite Medical and the DRX 9000, Peach State Payments, Recover, Chiro HD, Softwave, Cool Blue BA, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Script AI, Chiro Moguls, The Chiro Speaking Company, Pure Chiro Notes, 5-Star Forge, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, Life Chiropractic College West, and the IFCO. You can benefit from our full list of sponsors by visiting the sponsor page at chirohustle.com/sponsors. Links in the description. Now, let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 663 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I'm your producer, Luke Millette, and here's your host, James Chester.
So today we had the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Peter Goldman. And if you want to hear our conversation about the Zone School of Healing and the results that they get, stay tuned for the full episode. Welcome back. This is another episode of the Chiro Hustle podcast. We have Pete Goldman on with me today. It's probably our 10th interview that we've done since the 7 years of Chiro Hustle, maybe more. This is episode 663. Before we jump in to talk to Pete today about Zone School of Healing, he is the founder of the Zone School of Healing. It says it right there on the screen. Peter Goldman, DC, Zone School founder. We're going to talk about healing. We're going to talk about philosophy. We're going to walk through the whole process of how he teaches the segments to adjust based on the zone, which I think will be a huge eye-opener for so many chiropractors to see this conversation about the power that they are doing within the Zone School. We're going to jump right into this one, but before we do that, I'm going to tell you why we do what we do over here at Chiro Hustle. Freedom of speech. We just had a 20-minute conversation about freedom. And I think that that's still something that's really important to me is being able to say what we say and have it mean something and not be censored or shadow banned. Like they're still doing that to me, Pete. Like 7 years into this game, they're still like cinching down my traffic, like to the point where there's nobody on these lives anymore. And that's wild. So it's because we're saying something that matters. And when you say something that matters, the powers that be, they don't like that so much. So we do protect freedom of speech. And if somebody wants to swear here, we let them swear. If people want to talk about conspiracy theories, hey, they can talk about them. I don't censor anybody. I let people talk about what they want to talk about. So I think it's so important. And then we do believe in medical freedom and family health freedom. I know people scrambled all across the nation and the world to find these pockets of protection for themselves to where they could make good decisions. If you do need some advice on medical freedom and family health freedom, reach out to your local chiropractor. I think that that's a good place to start. And we protect BJ Palmer Sacred Trust. We believe that that we have to protect the philosophy of this profession. And that's something that Pete and I will talk about as well today. We do believe that in subluxation-centered chiropractic, where they're taking these things out of the schools. So if you're listening to this, please share the show. Share it with somebody who's graduated in the past 10 years so they can understand the philosophy of chiropractic. And we believe that when man or woman, the physical gets adjusted, it connects them to man or woman, the spiritual. And with that, that's innate intelligence, universal intelligence, and educated intelligence. And Dr. Pete, welcome to Chiro Hustle again.
Thank you. That's a tough, that speech is a tough act to follow, but I'll do the best I can.
You know, that's my opener, because I feel like if people only listen to the first 2.5 minutes of our show, they're going to get freight trained with real truth. And I think that that's a part where most people that do any type of podcasting, they do it because they want to grow their business. They do it because they want to market something. Me, I just want people to understand chiropractic better. So we never made this about growing business or getting clients or anything like that. That all happened by proxy of delivering the truth. And I think that's in alignment with you in the Zone School. Like, it's grown the way it has because you keep delivering the truth to people.
Well, it's interesting. What comes to mind when you mentioned some of the things you mentioned, and listen, I want to preface this by saying, a chiropractor listening to me, watching us, I mean, everyone can do what they want. People can practice the way they want, believe what they want. It's fine. I mean, really, sincerely, I mean, I respect that. That's good. And as I mentioned to you earlier, when people understand what I'm saying and accept what I'm saying, usually they want to learn more. So this is what I will start with in the spirit of what you said about chiropractic. There's this idea that and I don't know exactly the statistics, but the human brain, most people only use a very small percent of the capacity of their brain. I don't know what it is. But I would say that most chiropractors use a very, very, very small capacity of what chiropractic is capable of. And I'll elaborate on that. When most people go to chiropractic school, or maybe they take seminars after and they get a certain philosophy, the chiropractic equation comes down to two things in general. Again, I'm not saying this is what I teach, but this is the general chiropractic equation. The first part of the chiropractic equation is that the cause of disease or dis-ease is subluxation. That's the first part of the equation, meaning if you can find the subluxations and relieve them, then you are addressing the cause of disease. So the reason people are sick is because they're subluxated, and the reason they can heal is because they get unsubluxated. That's the first part of the equation. Now, the second part of the equation is there's this thing called innate intelligence. Like if you get a cut on your arm, then, a few days later it will be a scab, and a few days later it will heal. That's just an example of innate intelligence at work. So that's kind of the chiropractic equation. There's finding and fixing subluxations, and there's innate. Now, the reason I said most chiropractors, and there may be exceptions, and if there's an exception, you can disregard this, but most chiropractors don't really believe that. Even though they might say it, they might tell their patients, they might be a speaker at some kind of chiropractic event and talk about subluxation relief and innate, subluxation relief and innate. But the reason you can tell that most chiropractors don't believe it is if a patient walks into a chiropractor's office and they tell the chiropractor they have Crohn's disease, or they have high blood pressure, or they have a thyroid disorder, or they have an autoimmune disease, or they have endometriosis, most chiropractors outside of zone school, most chiropractors are not like, oh yeah, we'll wrap that up like we'll wrap up a stiff neck. But if they really believed in that chiropractic equation that I laid out, they should say that. Because if someone believes that the cause of disease is subluxation, and that the detection and relief of subluxation, along with innate, part two of the equation, is the solution, they'd be like, oh, endometriosis, we'll wrap that up in in a few visits, like we would wrap up a stiff neck. So one thing in zone school that I teach people is how to understand how healing actually works, tap into that principle, and be just as confident if someone walked in with a thyroid or autoimmune or, IBS, as they would be if someone just had a stiff neck.
Well, I think that that's really good for people to hear, because healing's not linear. Like, it's not like we start here and we go here. It's very much conditional. It's like weather. Some days it's sunny, some days it's raining. Some days we feel good, sometimes we feel terrible. And I think that the force of a chiropractic adjustment put into the body allows the body to find more of a state, like you said, disease earlier. It lets them find less disease and more ease, and it relieves the body of that tension pattern. And I think that that's one of the cool things that, I've found over the years of understanding the zone school is it's not so much about somebody's symptoms or conditions. It's about the check, the adjustment, and then the post check, which I think a lot of people don't know anything about zone school. And those that don't know, I think this is going to be, like I said in the opener, a huge opportunity for them to start to understand what you do and why you do it and why people do get the results as you guys talk about. And then we'll talk a little bit more also about how you've started to transition the zone school to become more international, which I think is really cool. I've been tracking you for a couple months now on that. But let's talk to people about the check, the adjustment segments that you go for, and then the post check so people can understand some of the philosophy that you just talked about.
Sure. So to start answering that question, let me say, if you look at everything taught in zone school, there's a certain part of zone school, I don't know, we'll call it 15% just for fun, which is the zone technique, which is a type of technique of chiropractic healing. And then I'd say 85% of what's taught in zone school are metaphysical principles of healing, little understood and not often taught. And then once someone understands these principles of healing, they can apply these principles with their patients and get much, 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 much better results than they were formerly getting. So let's talk about that 15% though, because you did mention that about the zone technique itself. First of all, let me start by saying there was a great chiropractor named Dr. Thurman Fleet. Dr. Thurman Fleet practiced in San Antonio, Texas in the 30s, 40s, 50s, etc. And he developed something called zone therapy. I was taught zone therapy starting in the early 1990s by 4 of Dr. Fleet's direct disciples, who at the time were like in their 80s and practicing for 40 plus years or whatever. And I spent one-on-one with each of the 4 over 100 hours over time. So I spent over 100 hours one-on-one, not in a group, one-on-one with 4 of his main disciples. So I was doing zone therapy in the mid 90s, late 90s. And by around 2002, I developed zone technique. And if you look at Dr. Fleet's, I got a picture of Dr. Fleet right there with Dee Palmer. If you look at Dr. Fleet's zone therapy, it is quite different than the zone technique. And there's about 10 major differences. But anyway, I don't want to dwell on that. I just want to mention that that was created by Dr. Fleet in the 1930s called zone therapy. And then I did what I did from many influences in healing and metaphysics. And then I altered it to create zone technique, which is taught in zone school. Now, with that said, to answer your question very specifically, there's an idea of chiropractic, and I'll explain the idea. I'm obviously, Jim, you know this, and most likely any chiropractor watching it knows this, but there's a reason I'm reviewing it. The idea in chiropractic is here's the brain, and it's sending signals down the cord, out the nerves to the cells in the body. Those cells might be a muscle or an organ or whatever. So there's this idea that if their bones are out of place in the spinal column, that the nerves are interfered with and the brain signal going down, coming out, gets interfered with at the spine, and then it sends the wrong signal or an interfered with signal to those cells. So the idea is the chiropractor finds where those bones are out of place, puts them in place, and then that brain signal can come unoccluded and just go to where it's going. The issue with that is, and this is very specific to the zone technique, what if the brain is unbalanced? What if the brain is sending the wrong signals in the first place? So you've put the bones in place and now the nerves are flowing unimpinged and the brain signal can get to those cells. But what if the brain itself is not balanced? Then 2 things. A, the brain cannot monitor the body properly because it's not balanced. And B, it can't send the right signals even if there is no subluxation. So what the zone technique does, there's points in the back of the head. These points, and it's not like SOT, nothing against SOT. SOT is great. I have 200 SOT doctors in zone school. But the point is, SOT has some occipital fibers that have nothing to do with this because they have 21 points back there on each side, which are related to vastly different things. Anyway, there's 6 points on the head in zone technique. These points on the head tell you, if you know how to feel them, what's happening in the brain centers. And then in order to balance the brain centers, there's points in the spinal cord that get stimulated in order to send energy up the cord to reset the brain. So now it's sending the right signals. Now, the body is like an electrical machine. The brain is the positive pole, the cord is the negative pole. So when you stimulate the negative pole in the proper areas, the positive pole can heal, and that is the zone adjustment. But here's the thing I just want to add. That's the answer to the question. I just want to add one thing. Zone school has about, I don't know, we'll say 1,700 chiropractors worldwide and growing fast. But sometimes the chiropractor will say, I don't need to join zone school. My buddy's in zone school. Let him just show me the points on the head, and then let him just show me the points in the spinal cord. And then why do I need to even join zone school? Well, as I said, Jim, zone school is 15% zone technique and 85% principles of healing. By the way, the basic course, just the basic course in zone school for those who join zone school is 60 hours, 60 hours. So if it was simple, if it was as simple as, hey, show me these points and what are the levels of the cord, you wouldn't need zone school. But that's why all the docs who do that, which is thankfully a very small number, their results are mediocre at best. So if you want to learn, if someone wants to learn how to do this, they have to learn, of course, the zone technique, the points and everything that goes along with that, and the principles of healing, and that leads to the unparalleled results.
Well, I do want you to kind of walk through the zones and explain them to people, because that's a huge part of having this interview with you today, and have you be like the expert position guy within the zone school as the founder. How many zones are there?
Great question. Thank you for directing me to that. So there's 6 zones. You have the glandular, which is all the glands in the body. You have the eliminative organs, which is like everything that eliminates your toxins, like sinuses, lungs, bronchial tubes, kidneys, bladder, intestines. You have the nervous system. You have the digestive system, which is everything that digests and assimilates food. You have the muscle system, all the muscles, and then you have the circulatory system, all the circulatory apparatus. So the idea with zone school, I'm glad you brought that up, Jim, to make me go into it further. The idea in zone school, any disease or dis-ease or ache or pain or any problem anyone can have is due to a disturbance in one or more of these 6 systems, because every cell in the body is somewhere in those 6 systems. So we determine which of the 6 systems is not balanced, we balance them, and then the body is able to heal itself. And by the way, I want to add one more thing. This is not an intersegmental bone moving technique. Nothing wrong with that, by the way. Those are fine. Like a Gonstead that would say like this bone is PRS and I'm going to put it in place. That's fine. That's an intersegmental bone moving technique. No problem. Good for them. This is not that. This is a spinal cord stimulation technique to heal the brain. It's a negative pole stimulation to heal the positive pole, which is why when you stimulate the points in question, you might get there's 4 for each zone. You might get an audible on all 4. You might get an audible on 3 out of 4. You might get an audible on 2 out of 4, or 1 out of 4, or 0 out of 4. It doesn't make a difference, because as long as the cord is stimulated, the audible is incidental. Now, often you'll get audibles on all 4, but it doesn't make a difference. Some people adjust what you might consider a little more thoroughly. Some people very light touch. Some people use an activator or other instrument. It doesn't make a difference as long as the cord is stimulated in the right points.
So let's talk about the chiropractor. Have you seen over the course of teaching people the zone technique that they've actually learned how to be better adjusters? They've got more confidence with their adjusting techniques and had more fun in practice?
Well, I'll put it like this. Whether they're better at mechanically moving bones, I don't know, but I'll tell you one small thing and one huge thing. The small thing is probably when you know where to adjust, it makes you a lot more confident, because a lot of chiropractors, and I'm not speaking for all of them, there may be plenty of exceptions, but a lot of chiropractors are essentially just doing static palpation and a couple leg checks. So they're just kind of pushing on the spine. Oh, is this tight? Is this tight? Patient says, yeah, it's tight. Okay, cracked. Oh, good. I mean, it's nonsense. The inter-examiner reliability of static palpation is nothing. So if that's supposed to be specific, it isn't. Now, so again, when you know exactly where to stimulate, does it make you more confident? Yeah, but that's a small thing. Let me tell you the bigger thing to answer your question about their practice and having fun in practice and more confidence. I'll go back to what I said earlier. Back in the day, before they learned this, when the patient came in and said they had endometriosis, they didn't know what to do. I mean, don't get me wrong. If someone practices for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, they're going to get their hit or miss great. Oh man, this patient came in for low back pain, and then, they adjusted her for 3 months and her endometriosis went away. It could happen, hit or miss. But I'm talking day in and day out, having the confidence that regardless of like emergency medicine, like someone needs stitches or something, having the utter confidence that whatever they come in for, you can help them.
You made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. This episode is brought to you by Excite Medical and the DRX 9000, Peach State Payments, Recover, Chiro HD, Softwave, Cool Blue BA, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Script AI, Chiro Moguls, The Chiro Speaking Company, Pure Chiro Notes, 5-Star Forge, Kytronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, Life Chiropractic College West, and the IFCO. You can benefit from our full list of sponsors by visiting the sponsor page at chirohustle.com/sponsors. Links in the description. Now, let's hustle. And see, that's really cool. I think that that's an important part for people to understand about chiropractic as a broad spectrum. Is a lot of people don't know what chiropractors actually can accomplish. And they've been taught that, hey, you come in here after you had a car crash, or you come in when nothing else works, which I think a lot of people still get those cases. They're still getting those cases that come into them where they've tried everything else and nothing else works. Or they've gotten into an incident where they've been damaged and they're like, hey, so I've been told by this attorney that I'm supposed to go see you, the chiropractor, which I think is really important to talk about because people typically don't come to the chiropractor because they're like, hey, check my zones for me. They come to the chiropractor because they're dealing with some type of symptomatology that nothing else works for them. And they're like, well, I've tried all these other things and nothing else is doing it. So here, I'm going to come see you now. And I think that it's important for people to have confidence is what I'm getting to, and to have certainty in their adjusting technique to know that no matter what shows up, they're going to be able to help these people.
Well, on that note, you mentioned about what brings someone into a chiropractor's office. And I'll tell you something interesting on that. You know, a lot of chiropractors will say, and I'm not saying they're wrong, by the way, but a lot of chiropractors will say, hey, chiropractic is for much more than neck and back pain. Well, I have two things to say to that. The first thing I have to say, I'm actually using it as a stand for my laptop, but I'll hold it up. This book here by D.D. Palmer, I'll put it back now. It's my stand again. This book, The Chiropractor's Adjuster, by the founder of chiropractic, D.D. Palmer, it's over 1,000 pages. 95% of the book is not about neck and back pain. The book is about healing organs. He has a couple pages that says, by the way, if someone's neck or back hurts, this could help too. So let's just start with that. But even that aside of what chiropractic was established for, my point is a lot of chiropractors will say, hey, you know, chiropractic's for much more than neck and back pain. And then but if you go to their office and interview everyone in their waiting room. Hey, what are you here for? 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 99% of the people in their waiting room are there for neck and back pain. But if you walk into my office over the years, 85% of the people sitting there were there for their uterus, their ovaries, their thyroid, their stomach, their digestion, their circulation, their glands, their lungs. So when someone wants to really be known as someone who can help with anything, because by the way, these were not people who came to me for neck and back pain and then I told them the chiropractic story and brought them over. No, these are people who on their entrance form, I got referred to you for irregular heartbeat. I got referred to you for endometriosis. And if someone wants to practice like that, then Zone School is for them. And by the way, I want to say one thing, even though I'm harping on the non-musculoskeletal, I've had the best professional athletes fly in from all over the world to me for musculoskeletal. So when it comes to musculoskeletal, I would say this, Jim, if you think of the average chiropractor, sure, there's exceptions. The average chiropractor, if you break up the musculoskeletal versus the non-musculoskeletal, musculoskeletal meaning like neck pain, back pain, shoulder pain, knee pain, non-musculoskeletal meaning like digestion, circulation, glands, things like that. If you break it up, Jim, most chiropractors are okay with the musculoskeletal. I mean, that's what they do. I'm saying this, in Zone School, if they're, pretty good with the musculoskeletal, they'll be infinitely better. And the non-musculoskeletal, it's probably not too confident, probably hit or miss. They'll be infinitely better with that too.
Well, I think it's really cool. I do want you to circle back to you're talking about how you the different zones. How do you determine where to adjust those 4 segments?
Great question. So each of the 6 systems, again, when you feel the back of the head, you'll know which system and which brain center needs balancing. Then there's 4 points for each zone. So in other words, like the glandular system, which you would feel in the back of the head, there's 4 points for the glandular system. The circulatory system, which you could feel in the back of the head, if that's the one, there's 4 different points for that one. So obviously you have to have a listing of them, and then listing meaning you have to write them down or whatever, and you'd know where to go.
Why not 6 segments?
I don't know. That's a good question. Why not 1 segment? I don't know.
Yeah.
The 4 helps it. It's like kind of like an electrician. When an electrician goes to fix something in the outlet, and he says, "Yeah, I'm going to put this here. I'm going to put this here," and you say, "Well, why don't you just put it there?" I mean, I don't know. Here and here works. So the 4 work.
Yeah, that's cool. And then post check. Talk about that part.
You recheck the back of the head to make sure the brain got the proper signal, and the brain will tell you that it's in healing mode.
That's cool. Yeah, I just think that a lot of people that are going to be curious about what the Zone School is doing and how you do it. I guess this you say you'll talk about anything. When it comes to how people build their practices with the Zone School, what's been the most effective thing that you've seen for making an awesome practice? Because I think what you're telling me, what a lot of zone people have told me, is they get people better faster.
So this is what I would say. I would say this, and actually you're kind of inadvertently segueing into like a practice management conversation, and I want to say a few things about that. I don't teach practice management. I always had a very, very busy practice. I never enrolled in any practice management. I never did anything. I never went to a seminar, nothing. I didn't do any of that stuff. I just knew that unparalleled healing results would make a line out the door, and it did. And by the way, I never took insurance either. I never took health insurance. I was always 100%, pay me at the time of the visit. With that said, a lot of times practice management companies, from what I hear, will teach chiropractors how to give their patients care plans, which from what I've heard, some I would put in the unethical category, giving people unnecessary care plans just because they want to make money or milk their insurance or whatever. And I'm not an expert on that topic, but I will say this. My care plan has always been this to every patient who ever walked into me: come weekly till you're healed. Everyone likes that. They don't feel like I'm selling them anything. Come 3 times. Come weekly till you're healed. Because listen, Jim, if someone comes into me and on the first visit, they tell me they have period cramps, insomnia, digestive problems, and neck pain, good. Come into me until your cycle feels perfect, your digestion's perfect, you sleep like a baby, and your neck is totally healed. Everyone likes that.
So I know you said you're not practice management. But are there people in the Zone School that bill out for insurance?
I don't really track that, but if I had to guess, yeah, because I don't teach practice management, nor do I say to be all cash or anything like that. I don't teach any of that stuff. I'm just saying that my entire career never took health insurance. If I had to guess, I bet you 70% of Zone School members take insurance and 30% don't. I'm just guessing. I never really asked them.
I'm just curious because I know that there's going to be a lot of people that will watch this segment and they're going to be like, well, how do I fit Zone into my insurance model? Or how do I fit Zone into this model? And I'm sure, like you said earlier, you like SOT. How do you fit Zone into SOT? How do you fit Zone into torque release technique? How do you fit Zone into a model where somebody else has their mind made up on how they've already established their practice.
I
So
have a-
you're like a parallel education for the practitioner. It's already established pretty much.
Let's break your question up into two parts, and I'll answer it part by part. Let's start with the taking health insurance. That's got really nothing to do with anything. I mean, many people join Zone School, start doing zone technique, applying the principles of healing. Their practice does phenomenal, and they either keep doing insurance or not. That's just up to them. It fits in just fine. That's easy as can be. Let's talk about the other part, though, because you brought up something else. Someone says, hey, they've been an AK doc for 20 years. They've been an SOT doc for 25 years. They've been an upper cervical doc for 30 years. This is exactly what I'll say. Join Zone School and you'll do one of three things. A, you'll just throw out everything you ever did and learned, and you'll do exactly what I tell you. You'll do zone technique and apply the principles of healing. That's A. B, you may not like that. You might say, you know what? I'm going to keep doing Gonstead, but Pete already said that 85% of what he teaches are principles of healing to get better results. So I'm not going to do zone technique at all. I'm just going to learn the 85% of the principles of healing and apply that to the Gonstead technique that they already do, and they can do that. That's B. Or C, and I don't really love C, but people could do what they want. C, they'll take the healing principles, they'll keep doing their technique, we'll say Thompson or whatever, and they'll kind of mix the zones into it. So they'll do like zones and their technique. I don't love that because I don't think it's good to serve two masters, but hey, to each his own. So that's up to them. But either way, I can tell you this, Jim, and there's a lot of things, for lack of a better word, I'm proud of about Zone School. And I don't even know why, but what I'm going to tell you now is one of the things I'm most proud of, what I'm going to say now, because there's a lot of things I could pick, but I really love this. And what I'm going to tell you, I've heard probably 200 or 300 times. And I love hearing this. It's when a chiropractor tells me they've been in practice for 35 years, or they've been in practice for 40 years, or they've been in practice for 47 years, and they joined Zone School a year ago. So they, let's call it the chiropractor in practice for 40 years. They practiced for 39 years, and they joined Zone School 1 year ago. So this 40th year of practice is with learning from me. And I've heard maybe 400 times, and it's music to my ears. Dr. Pete, they tell me, they always were a good chiropractor. They always enjoyed chiropractic. But in the last year, they are helping people they never could have helped before. Never even could have thought they could have helped before. That I love to hear. And I also hear, and I love this too, from these veterans practicing 30, 40 plus years. Hey, Dr. Pete, I finally understand how healing actually works. I thought I understood how it worked. Now I understand how healing actually works.
Well, I think there's a lot for people to discover with what you're doing. I know you're taking your footprint more globally now, which is really cool. Talk about a couple of the workshops that you've recently had and where you go next.
Sure. Well, a couple things. So I want to say that Zone School is an online program with optional in-person seminars. So if someone goes, for example, to the Zone School website, which is zoneschoolofhealing.com, zoneschoolofhealing.com. If someone goes to the Zone School website, they can learn a little bit more, and they might say, I want to join Zone School. So they join right there, and they get immediate and lifetime access to 60 hours of me teaching them online. That's the way to learn. However, like you mentioned, I also do teach in-person seminars. And also on the same Zone School website, you can find the list of seminars. I teach about one per month all over the world. Now, to answer your specific question about where, and again, the Zone School website says where I'll be and all that stuff. I did recently teach in UK and Holland. I already had I've had for years chiropractors all over the world, including UK and Holland and all over the world, all over Europe, etc. So they've already been in Zone School learning and they were already doing what I'm teaching. However, it was nice to get out there, teach an in-person seminar in UK and Holland. And to be a little more detail, when I taught in Holland, we had chiropractors there from 9 different European countries. They were there from Holland, Belgium, Germany, I forgot the other one, Spain, Ireland, And we even had someone flying from Australia to that one. When I taught in the UK, most of the chiropractors there were from the UK.
Well, I just think it's really cool to see how you've grown your brand over the past several years that we've been connected. And just want to say thank you for supporting us early on and our endeavors to create this podcast and to disseminate it out to more people. Hopefully that a lot of people learn more about your organization and what your business is through us. And I think that, you know, over time, we need more people confident in the chiropractic method. We need more people to have philosophy and science and art in their practices. And we need people getting better because just like you said, people come to you after practicing 3 decades and they finally feel like they have an answer to their practice again. And I think the same thing could go for the person looking for true healing. They go through every other practitioner of the world and then they find chiropractic and they say, why didn't anybody else tell me about this until you? And I'm sure you hear that all the time as being a practitioner. Why didn't anybody else tell me about this? And now I'm finally to the chiropractor. And I think zone is one of those things. Like we just need to keep on telling people how they can improve their technique, how they can improve their practice, and how they can actually get great results for people.
Well, A, I appreciate it sincerely. B, I've always been a big fan of Chiro Hustle, as you know. And C, if you are a chiropractor or a chiropractic student, go to the website and join us, and you'll thank me and you'll thank Jim.
Well, Pete, is there anything that I didn't ask you that you think that we should close out on?
I would just say that there's a lot of confusion in chiropractic about what actually does the healing. Because if you think about this, Jim, and I'll solve this in Zone School for anyone who joins. But if you think about it, forget Zone School, forget Zone Technique for a moment. And you think the average chiropractor says people are sick because they're subluxated. And then if you find where they're subluxated and you correct it, they'll get better. I already addressed this to a degree before, but I want to add an element to it in closing, like you said, which is this. If it's really true that people are sick because they're subluxated, and theoretically those subluxations are probably between occiput and coccyx, then why can you take someone, here's an imaginary person laying on an imaginary chiropractic table, and presumably they're sick in my imaginary example, and presumably from the chiropractic perspective, they have subluxations between occiput and coccyx. Well, I would think that if they have subluxations between occiput and coccyx and the solution is getting those corrected, then why does a Gonstead doctor look at that patient and say, oh, they have a subluxation at T6 and C7 and L5. But the same patient, a CBP doctor looks at and says, no, they don't have that. They have global subluxations. None of this intersegmental rotational nonsense. They have global subluxations. And why does an old school network doctor say, let's not even start adjusting them on the second visit like you guys are doing. Let's prepare their meninges for 10 visits or whatever it is before we start. And why does the upper cervical doctor say, forget about everything below C2, it's ASLM Atlas. So there's so much confusion within chiropractic about supposedly what's healing because, Jim, God forbid someone gets shot and the bullet is in the right lower abdomen. You know where the surgeon goes to save their life? The right lower abdomen. You know where 70 out of 70 surgeons go to save their life? The right lower abdomen. So why do chiropractors say that people are sick because they're subluxated and they can't even find the same subluxation? So I'll solve all that in Zone School for any chiropractor who's confused about that and wants to know.
Well, Pete, thanks for being 663 of the Chiro Hustle podcast.
I didn't want to be 666.
I don't know who that will be, but it'll be next week.
Well, Jim, your energy is so good. You being there will nullify any issue with the 666.
Maybe we'll skip it. Maybe we'll make 2 667s.
When I was growing up, and I'm born and raised in New York City. So in New York City, we have a lot of tall buildings with elevators. When I was a kid, a lot of the buildings had no 13th floor. It would say, 11, 12, 14. So, people are superstitious sometimes.
Maybe we'll skip it. But we did an episode 13.
And everything worked out, so we're okay.
Well, go check out Pete's website. Please tell him what it is again.
Sure. Thank you. It is zoneschoolofhealing.com.
So go check out zoneschoolofhealing.com, link up with Pete and his team, go learn some healing principles and start setting people free. With that, I'm going to close out by telling you guys, you're just one story away. Keep hustling. I'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye for now. See you, Pete.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.